Hi, and welcome to the second Remnants video. I'm super excited for this one. If you've missed the first Remnants video, I'll leave a link for you in the description box below. Just a reminder, if I don't discuss something that is seemingly connected to the boss, it's probably better suited for another video. Don't worry, nothing will escape my linguistic attention. As usual, we'll quickly go over the disclaimers, legend, and sources. Number 1. Use common sense. Please do not assume that I have access to some secret true knowledge. I'm just entertained by reading Sekiro in Japanese. My lore theories are just theories, so treat them accordingly. Number 2. I'm not a professional translator. I have never worked in localization. Yes, I will say that something is translated poorly and something is not, and it will be my personal point of view. Ultimately, my goal is to give you the information so you can see if the localization was good or not, whether something important was lost or not. My opinion is just that, and I choose to share it. Number 3. I am not an expert on Buddhism. I will leave links to the Buddhist terms that we will encounter so you can read more on your own if you're interested. As usual, the transcriptions I give do not follow all academic rules, and I don't think it's necessary. They're just here to represent the pronunciation in case you're curious. All sources I used for this research will be listed in the description box below, along with all the additional information that I referenced throughout the video, so you can read more if you're interested. There you will also find a link to my original blog post if you want to read it through. Let's start with probably the most interesting boss name of the bunch. The guardian ape is called Shishizaru, literally lion monkey. Isn't that awesome? This word actually denotes a real-life species of monkeys, lion tamarin. It's the cutest monkey with a luxurious golden or ginger mane. Despite the fact that lion tamarins are the largest tamarins, they're still relatively small and weigh up to 500-600 grams, which is not even the weight of a poop the guardian ape flings at you when he gets the chance. Lion tamarins have claw-like nails on all their fingers instead of flat nails that other primates have. And guardian ape does too, just look at his hands. These monkeys are native to Brazil. Important to note that lion tamarins are social animals and they are largely monogamous. They have their little monkey babies with one partner and raise them together, dividing the responsibilities. The lore of guardian ape actually mirrors this real-life lion tamarin description. As for the fact that his fur is white while his fiancée is brown, I think we can assume that he wasn't always white. You know, those marked with immortality, and it seems to me any immortality, kind of pale over time. Kuro has white streaks in his hair, Wolf does too. Why not the monkey that's been around for a long time? The infested body part is quite accurate. The original names this condition Shinchu Mushi, internal parasites, parasites residing within one's body. Mushi actually denotes various insects, bugs, and worms, so yeah, centipedes can also be included here. Too bad they didn't translate his name as it is in the original. You don't need to tie this boss to the real tamarins and call him Lion Tamarin. Lion ape would have been awesome. Guardian ape gives people an incorrect idea that the ape is guarding the lotus so that Wolf wouldn't be able to get it. In reality, the ape doesn't care about Wolf. It's his flower and he's taking care of it, that's all. He has not been put there to guard the flower from those who might want to steal it, and thus I think the localization shouldn't have named him Guardian. As for the sword stuck in him, I have a theory and we'll talk about it in the next video, so stay tuned. Lotus is actually very mysterious. Its original name is Kagowashi Suren. Kagowashi means sweet-smelling, fragrant, or can just refer to something beautiful, but we'll take the fragrant part. The noun is very curious. Suren is a coined word. It consists of water and lotus. There is another word that sounds the same but is written differently, suren, water lily. I spent quite a lot of time thinking whether this flower is a water lily or indeed a lotus, and why it's called suren. I think that suren is here to emphasize the lore about the special water in which this flower grows. The description does say quite unambiguously that it's a lotus, not a water lily. The original describes the color of the lotus using the word aojiroi, pale bluish-white. The original description also quite clearly conveys the fact that this flower is not unique and is not one of a kind. These lotus flowers can be found where the fountainhead waters are thick. I was quite disappointed to see incense. In Japanese, the aroma you are trying to construct with a lotus and shelter stone is called minamoto no koki, fountainhead fragrance. Would be nice to see somewhere. The original description says that the lotus exudes the fountainhead fragrance, and thus it is one of the incense ingredients. As you see, there is nothing of the palace in the original name. Lotus of the palace sounds like the lotus was sent from the palace, or grows in the palace but by chance ended up in the valley, when in reality these flowers are naturally occurring in the places where the fountainhead waters pool deeply. Should have been something along the lines of fragrant lotus or something. We'll cover Slender Finger that the lion ape drops in the next video. Don't worry, I haven't forgotten about it. I was really confused if the Headless Ape was the next stage of the Guardian Ape, or they're not the same boss and there are two giant apes living in the Sunken Valley. Well, the original doesn't let anybody get confused because the Headless Ape is called exactly what the Guardian Ape is called, but, well, plus headless. Kubinashi Shishizaru, Headless Lion Ape. So yeah, technically it's the same boss, but since we didn't kill the centipede, he came back to life. I already talked about the failure with the Headless Ape dialogue in the video about sugars and the headless. Here it is. Remember the bloody guy sitting on the ground as you go to the Headless Ape arena? He's moaning in pain, saying, my neck, my neck. I thought the poor guy broke his neck having been pushed aside by the giant raging ape, but then I realized that in Japanese he's talking about kubi. Like a headless ape just passed here. Ape's lore is very tragic if you think about it. He was just mourning the death of his loved one and didn't want anything to do with fountainhead fragrances and stupid shinobis. Bestowal Ninjutsu is a lot of fun because 1. Its original name is not at all what you expect it to be, and 2. It's the only ninjutsu with an icon that corresponds to its description and not to its name. So this technique is called Chigatana Jutsu, literally bloody katana technique. The kanji that you see as an icon for this ninjutsu is borrowed from the description. It's matsuvaru, to coil around, to follow around. Maybe the English localization actually had a decent option like blood sword ninjutsu, but it sounded too similar to blood smoke ninjutsu. Bestowal is so weird, but you can see some logic behind it. The special quality of your enemy's blood is bestowed upon your sword for a short while, if your enemy has one, that is. Wreath is actually a good choice for matsuvaru. The original describes the process as the ninjutsu that makes the blood coil around the sword, and says that it is a secret technique that turns the blood of the murdered person into a cursed blade. This part was moved by the English localization a little further along the description. Probably the most valuable part of this description is the one that explains how Wolf learns ninjutsu in general. He discovers these techniques by fighting certain enemies. Wolf discovered this technique by beheading an undying foe. The original name of the corrupted monk is Hakai-so, where Hakai denotes offense against the Buddhist commandments and So means monk or priest. Interestingly enough, the mask of a fierce guardian deity mentioned in the description is actually Yashamen, a mask of Yaksha. We discussed Yakshas in the context of Yashariko Sugar in the very first Sekiro video. Yakshas are a class of nature spirits, mostly benevolent but sometimes mischievous. They can be seen in many temples as guardian deities. The Yakshas in Buddhism have dual personality. They can either be harmless nature spirits or ghosts who hunt travelers like Rakshasas. Their more aggressive embodiment is known as Bhuta. Curious that the monk also has two aspects to her, an illusory one and a real one, and she is also a guardian. Her mask is not a random Yaksha mask, but a special one called Hanya. This word denotes prajna, a Buddhist term for wisdom required to attain enlightenment. We are already familiar with this concept from Bloodborne, although it was denoted with a different Japanese word. Anyway, what's more important is that Hanya is also a classic No mask, No being a form of Japanese dance drama, you can say theater. This mask was created by an artist monk of the same name, or some say that it's called Hanya because you need a lot of wisdom to be able to create such a mask. Hanya mask depicts a woman who has become a demon because of her jealousy or some kind of obsession. If you look at this mask straight, it's demonic and scary, but if you look at it at an angle, slightly from above, it's sorrowful, as if the person is crying. The color of the mask is also important. The white mask says that it's a woman with a refined character, an aristocrat. A red mask points at a less refined character, a peasant, and a dark red mask depicts a true demon. Corrupted monk has a white mask. This boss has a lot of duality going on. It has two forms. Her Hana mask also hints at two states, a demonic one and a tragic one. Reminds me a lot of Gwendolyn and his sun and moon personality. Unfortunately, the localization didn't give enough attention to the word maboroshi that is present in the original. It's the same word for illusion we've seen multiple times already. Instead, the translation says, her form was nebulous, which is beautiful, but Sekiro is a very consistent game. If you see the word maboroshi, it means there is an illusion, there is a master, all of that, and you can start snapping seeds right away. As for what reason could there have been for guarding the Mibu village cave entrance, we'll get there in a sec. The skill is called Mibu no Kokyu Jutsu, which corresponds to Mibu breathing technique. There is a sentence that could have been translated more accurately. The founder of Mibu taught this secret technique in private only to the person who decided to participate in a bridal procession. Everything else is correct. So why do we get this secret technique reserved only for special people after defeating the corrupted monk? Is she the founder of Mibu village? I don't think so. Did she steal or elicit this technique from the founder to ascend to the palace? That's quite possible. I can't let go of this thought that the major character trait of the corrupted monk is jealousy. With her getting hold of this technique, I think nobody else can ascend unless they defeat her illusion. She doesn't seem like a person who'd teach anybody anything. How did the founder of Mibu village know how to breathe underwater? I wasn't sure where to place Miss Noble, so let's talk about him here. I think it's the only character that is not present in the art book. Villagers with pitchforks are, and he is not. It's hilarious. Anyway, his original name is Kirigomori Kijin, something like a noble hiding in mist, or a noble filling space with mist. English localization unfortunately didn't reflect the way that the guy we meet in the forest near a fire talks about the mist. He calls it Maboroshi no Kiri, illusory mist or illusion of mist. Thus, Mist Noble is akin to Lady Butterfly. He's also a master of illusions, in this case the illusory mist. That's why the mist disperses when we kill him. To dispel illusions, you need to defeat their master. Of course, it's obvious that Mist Noble is the source of the mist. I just thought it was quite curious that the mist in this case is not just a random, unexplained magic, but an illusion, a type of art well established in the world of Sekiro. As I've already said, the game is very consistent. Shelter Stone is a very interesting item. Its original name is Uyadori Ishi. Yadori is indeed a shelter, a dwelling place, and Ishi means rock, so Shelter Stone does seem like an accurate enough translation. However, there is a similar word in Japanese that you can actually find in a dictionary, yadorigi. Shelter plus tree equals parasitic plant. I think we can safely assume by analogy that if yadorigi is a parasitic plant, yadori-ishi can be a parasitic stone. Prefix o tells us that this item is somehow worshipped or is considered sacred. The localization says that this stone is just lying on the altar deep in Mibu village, but the original actually says that it is enshrined there. The mechanics of how these stones come to be is mostly translated correctly, although in place of appear, the original uses the same verb yadoru, to live or dwell. One of its meanings, believe it or not, is to be a parasite. These stones sometimes live in the bodies of those who drink fountainhead waters. There is also a vital piece of information completely lost by the English localization. Parasites are considered a good omen. I think that the word oyadori without the stone part is used to denote parasites, someone who lives inside of you. Since parasites are considered to be a good omen, this might tell us why they encouraged people to have said parasites and why they enshrined the stones. The fragrance of the stone is emphasized by the same word we've seen in the Lotus description, kaguwashi. I am very curious how parasitic stones relate to parasitic centipedes. Are they just different stages of infestation or two completely different processes triggered, however, by the fountainhead waters? This stone is not unique, by the way. If you look closely at the altar, you'll see a bunch of them lying there. The one you can interact with kind of outshines them, and you're likely to miss the others. I wonder how the future procession participants extract their stones. While we are in the cave, I think it's a good time to look at some other things connected to this bridal procession. The key word here is koshire, where kago, the first kanji, denotes a palanquin. The literal translation of koshire would be entering the palanquin. However, this word is used in a wedding context when entering another family, since the bride is supposed to arrive at the groom's house in a palanquin. I think that in Sekiro, koshire might not be the wedding bridal procession that we usually think of, but rather a process of transitioning from one state to another, from one family to another, from the mortal world and into the palace. I don't think that somebody actually gets married, it's just a comparable ceremony. You kind of give up your previous life and transition into a new one. All places connected to the procession have the word koshire in their names. The cave door guarded by corrupted monk is called koshire no iwado, the stone door of the procession. The cave itself is called koshire no dokutsu, the procession cave. The straw man that escorts us to the palace is called koshire no omukae, the one sent to meet, greet, or pick up the procession. True monk translation is very disappointing to me. It seems they just based it on the fact that the first one was illusory instead of adapting the original. And the original is very interesting. Her name is Miya no Hakaiso, corrupted monk of the palace. It would be a great opportunity for the English localization to add of the palace somewhere where it actually matters, instead of nailing it to the Lotus for some reason, but alas. The most important detail is in the memory of this boss. It was lost in translation, unfortunately. Corrupted monk who has reached the Fountainhead Palace. Thus, we can assume that she ascended to the palace and then created an illusion to guard the cave so that nobody else can ascend. Again, her Hanya mask is a symbol of jealousy and obsession. Remember that these are all my theories, and every bit of proof I have I'm sharing here with you. Her real name is Yao Bikuni. Bikuni is a formal title in Buddhism. It denotes a fully ordained Buddhist nun. Yao can also be read as Happeku, which means 800. Yao Bikuni, Priestess Yao, is a character from a folk story about Ningyo. It is called Yao Bikuni or Happeku Bikuni. Make yourself comfortable. Shitani will now tell you a story. Once upon a time, a fisherman caught an unusual fish with a human face, monkey's mouth, shining golden scales, and a quiet voice. He didn't know this creature is called Ningyo, and catching it is a bad omen. The fisherman invited guests to treat them to the meat of this miraculous fish. It so happened that one of the guests peeked into the kitchen and saw a fish with a human face being prepared. He told everybody else about it. Secretly, the guests wrapped the meat served to them in paper and discarded it on their way home. However, one of the guests, drunk on sake, forgot to throw the fish meat away. When he came home, he was foolish enough to give it to his little daughter, who demanded a present. When he came to his senses, the girl already ate the fish. He was scared she would be poisoned, but nothing happened, and in time he stopped worrying about it. The girl grew up and got married, and then she noticed that she stopped aging. Her first husband grew old and died, and she was still young. The same happened to her other husbands. After many years of perpetual youth, she became a nun and traveled many lands. Finally, she returned to her hometown and ended her life at an age of 800 years. If only Sekiro had a fish with a full mouth of human teeth, am I right? I don't think that the monk somehow ate a piece of the carp, but it's a very interesting reference nonetheless. Dragon's Tallyboard's original name is Ryu no Warifu, which corresponds to Dragon's Tallyboard, or a tallyboard shaped like a dragon. This item serves a double purpose. It is valuable to customers as they gain access to a wider assortment of goods, and it is prized by the merchants as well, since with it comes a special position. Merchants with this tallyboard are called Ryu no Kaku no Mono, people of the dragon rank. The English localization says that they are recognized by the imperial palace. Of course, Miya can refer to the imperial palace, but in the world of Sekiro there is only one palace, Minamoto no Miya, Fountainhead Palace. Thus we can assume that those who have Dragon's Tallyboard are recognized by the Fountainhead Palace and are given some privileges, maybe special goods they can trade in the mortal world? It's an interesting item that points at the connection between the Fountainhead Palace and the lower world through merchants. Why does the monk have this board? It's hard to imagine she needed to sell or purchase anything. Maybe she had the power to bestow the tallyboard upon worthy merchants. Maybe she drops it because it's endgame and the player needs craft materials and divine confetti. I love this Remnants part. The connection between the palace and the world below is so interesting, I can just lose myself in theories. The localization is mostly on point, but there are still many things that could have been done better, like Lion Ape or Lotus of the Palace that is not of the palace, contrary to Corrupted Monk, who is very much of the palace. The next part will be the last one. We'll cover the remaining bosses and their items, so stay tuned for that. Don't forget to check the description for relevant links and more reading. Thank you very much for your time, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.